there, everyone. Welcome back to another technique tutorial here. If you were watching my Make It With Me Monday video yesterday, or maybe you've caught it, since then, I showed you how I kind of added some gold flecking onto a stamped image that I had done. And I want to go over this again in a little bit more detail so you can see how that was done. So the first thing I did was let me show you the actual piece here. So I'm talking about this guy right here. So you see how he's got some extra gold embossed flecking on there on that piece itself. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I took this particular stamp from Textured Notes and I stamped it in Pretty Peacock ink on a piece of very vanilla scrap, and I fussy cut around. I did cut first because I want the flecking to just naturally happen on whatever this is going to look like. And I didn't want to have to try to fussy cut around that or decide how much I wanted to keep or anything quite like that. So if you are familiar with a technique we might have shared, or you might have been shown also, which is called thumping. I know normally we do this with a Stampin Write marker, and it's used to add additional color to an image already that you might have had with ink. Very popular in the fall to create fall foliage. You might ink up your stamp with, let's say, the crushed curry color. So it might start with the yellows, and then you might add on a little pumpkin pie, or you might add on a little cherry cobbler to try to get into those really fall rich tones where you see all the leaf colors are in changing mode. So like I said, it's a really interesting way to add some extra color to something that normally would just be a one color image without having to go in with a lot of detail with your markers. Okay, so first what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my VersaMark refill. Now VersaMark, of course, we use when we are heat embossing. It's a sticky clear ink. I'm going to put a little bit of it onto just a spare black I have here. It's a sticky clear ink, and that is what we use for heat embossing. So if you were going to emboss this whole thing, I would have just taken my VersaMark pad, inked the entire thing up, taken it over to my embossing powder, sprinkled that on, heated it up. After I've stamped it on, so of course. But here, I already have this, and I only want to add a little bit of VersaMark to this. So I'm going to use a blender pen. This is another way that we can use for coloring. I'm going to pick up that VersaMark ink, and here is what the thumping looks like. You basically just want to tap, almost like you're doing a drumstick onto a drum. You can tap a little harder in places, a little lighter in places. Now what you're going to end up, we'll see if you can see this in the light. There's going to be little hints of this clear, shiny parts then on various leaves that are already there, okay? Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring back in the other image. And this is the other reason I fussy cut it, so that I can kind of see the outline of what I've got going on here when I'm going to go back and place it again. And I don't care if this is perfect. That's not what I'm aiming for. I am aiming to just have a little bit of that VersaMark ink land where it's going to land. I will then take later I will take this over and I will actually run a little bit of water into it just to make sure I get the ink all cleared out. But you can just rub off. When you're using this just on regular colors, once you see it go clear, you know that it's good to use again. So that's a thing you can use over and over again, which is why mine looked really dark. It was probably already in a dark ink at one point. All right, I'm going to bring in my gold embossing powder. And I like to store mine in a big tub with a spoon, because then I can just pick up, I'm trying not to rub any of the ink off, and sprinkle right back over that tub again. Okay, so now you can see, set this off to the side, that there is now gold in those places where I have had thumped the little bit of VersaMark ink. Then I would take this over to my heat tool, I would heat it up and get it all melty, and then it's going to look something like that. Now, this is a technique, of course, that will never look the same twice. So each of these pieces aren't going to turn out the same, because you're never going to hit the piece the same way, in the right manner, in the same place, all that kind of stuff. So it's a very fun technique to play with. Again, adding different colors into something, or doing something like this, where you're going to add just a little bit of a highlight of something else to an already existing image. All right, everybody, that's it for now. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.